The title of this video is A Final Warning to Jehovah's Witnesses. Pay attention before it's too late. That is not clickbait. It is not hyperbole. I served the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses for 40 years as an elder in Canada, Colombia, and Ecuador. I understand that what I'm about to say will sound shocking to any true blue Jehovah's Witness. But please hear me out first and then judge for yourself. In a moment, I'm going to play an excerpt from a morning worship video on jw.org that was presented about a month ago by governing body member Stephen Lett. In this talk, Lett tells you that you will need to obey him and the other members of the governing body because your life will depend on unconditionally following their instructions.
And it's vital that each of us try to improve in this area of being obedient, submissive to husbands, to parents, to the elders, to the faithful and discreet slave. An additional reason to improve is that undoubtedly those taking the lead today will be used in the near future by Jehovah through these ones taking the lead again to give life or death instructions to his people. For example, instructions concerning the cry of peace and security, instructions concerning delivering the hailstone message, instructions concerning entering the inner rooms until the wrath has passed by, mentioned in Isaiah 26:20, as just a few examples. And our pattern of being obedient will move us to obey and be submissive, even if we don't understand, even if the direction doesn't seem to make sense to us from a human standpoint. But we'll remember this pattern of being obedient, that Jehovah often does direct the unexpected to be done. He often directs something that doesn't make sense from a human standpoint. Especially in times of deliverance and judgment, Jehovah often uses shock and awe, doesn't he?
If you are one of Jehovah's Witnesses, you will realize from this that the governing body is telling you that obedience to their instructions, even if those instructions seem outlandish, will be necessary for your survival.
Through these ones taking the lead again to give life or death instructions to his people. For example, instructions concerning the cry of peace and security.
At some point in the near future, the governing body, who now claim to be Jesus' faithful and discreet slave, will tell you that the cry of peace and security has occurred, and that the world is on the cusp of the Great Tribulation. This will cause Jehovah's Witnesses to become very excited, believing that the end has finally arrived.
Instructions concerning delivering the hailstone message.
The hailstone message goes back to the pre-1975 days when Freddie Franz was spouting types and antitypes everywhere and anywhere. We have this. Jehovah's Witnesses are now preaching a message of deliverance and salvation for those who will take refuge in the kingdom, which cannot be shaken. But the hailstones picture not a message of deliverance, but the hard, unyielding proclamation of God's vengeance against Satan's visible organization. Jehovah's Witnesses will, at the last, deliver this stinging message, presaging the destruction of the men upon whom it falls. Watchtower, 1967, January 15th, page 60. As age-old institutions crumble, is survival possible? Going out into the world to tell everyone they are going to die is an inherently provocative and dangerous message. Does the Bible actually instruct Christians to do this as a condition for survival? Where precisely is such a command found in Scripture? And to what end? Consider the implication carefully. The governing body is asserting that, at some future point, it will demand that you and your fellow Jehovah's Witnesses proclaim a message of outright condemnation, one that amounts to the organization declaring with triumphal glee that it was right all along. The pettiness of such a message is striking. Yet the more troubling reality is that the members of the governing body appear to believe their own narrative. They have fully internalized their theology. In their view, anyone who does not submit to their authority and follow their instructions deserves to be condemned to death by God. Finally,
instructions concerning entering the inner rooms until the wrath is passed by, mentioned in Isaiah 26:20.
Your survival through Armageddon, you are told, will depend on following instructions to enter into the inner rooms, whatever that is ultimately supposed to mean. Once again, this is framed as a preparatory directive, as stated in the Watchtower. At that time, the life-saving direction that we receive from Jehovah's organization may not appear practical from a human standpoint. All of us must be ready to obey any instructions we may receive, whether these appear sound from a strategic or human standpoint or not. Watchtower 2013, November 15th, page 20, paragraph 17. 7 Shepherds, 8 Dukes, What They Mean for Us Today. These are not mere words that can be casually dismissed. This scenario is presented as inevitable, and if it unfolds as described, faithful members of Jehovah's Witnesses will suffer. How do I know this? Because history tells us so. It has often been said that those who refuse to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So what does history reveal about men who claim to speak for God, who gather followers after themselves, yet possess no verifiable credentials of divine appointment? Moses led an entire nation, but he was followed only after it became unmistakably clear that he had been appointed by God. 10 plagues served as evidence. The apostles, likewise, demonstrated divine backing through miracles. Their authority was proven, not merely asserted. By contrast, the religious leaders we are about to examine had no such backing. Lacking divine validation, they resorted to exploiting fear and ignorance. What they all share is a familiar pattern, a claim that the end is imminent, that they alone possess special knowledge of its timing, and that survival depends on unquestioning obedience to their instructions. One such figure was William Miller, who predicted that the end would come in 1843. He persuaded his followers to sell their farms or homes and businesses, abandon their livelihoods, and gather together in expectation of the end. When it failed to materialize, the episode became known as the Great Disappointment. That movement went on to spawn the Adventist religion, which today exists in many branches, one of which is Jehovah's Witnesses. One of the most notorious Adventist-derived cults was the Branch Davidians. Their leader, David Koresh, persuaded his followers to barricade themselves in Waco, Texas. After a 51-day siege with the United States federal authorities, all 75 of his followers, including children, died in a fire. In the 1990s, another cult met a similarly tragic end, the Heaven's Gate community. Its leader, Marshall Applewhite, demanded absolute submission to his authority and received it. He ultimately convinced his followers to participate in mass suicide, believing that their spirits would ascend to a higher plane of existence. Harold Egbert Camping, 1921 to 2013, was an American Christian radio broadcaster and evangelist, best known for his highly publicized and repeatedly failed predictions of the end of the world in 1994 and again in 2011. His followers donated millions of dollars for billboards and worldwide campaigns proclaiming Judgment Day. That should sound familiar. It closely resembles the so-called hailstone message Jehovah's Witnesses are being conditioned to expect they will one day proclaim. The pattern is unmistakable. In every case, the mechanism is the same. A small group of men claims exclusive access to divine truth, demands unquestioning obedience, insists that the end is imminent, and frames dissent as a threat to survival. The followers are told that ordinary reasoning no longer applies, that doubt is dangerous, and that obedience, however irrational it may seem, is the only path to safety. This is precisely the psychological framework now being reinforced by the Watchtower. When the governing body repeatedly conditions its members to accept instructions that may not appear practical from a human standpoint, it is not offering spiritual guidance. It is deliberately training compliance. When it insists that obedience must be rendered even when directives appear illogical or strategically unsound, it is dismantling personal judgment in favor of institutional control. That is how destructive movements prepare their followers for extreme demands. They do not begin with catastrophe. They begin with normalization. They normalize failed predictions. They normalize ever-escalating obedience. They normalize the idea that leaders cannot be questioned because lives are at stake. By the time the final instruction arrives, the groundwork has already been laid. David Koresh did not begin by demanding a siege. Marshall Applewhite did not begin by demanding suicide. Harold Camping did not begin by demanding total financial ruin. Each began by convincing followers that they alone spoke for God, that the end was imminent, and that survival depended on obedience. The Watchtower's rhetoric now mirrors that same trajectory, with one critical difference. Its reach is global, and its authority over its members' lives is already deeply entrenched. This is why the governing body's current messaging is so dangerous. It is not merely speculative theology or overzealous rhetoric. It is a systematic rehearsal for compliance under crisis conditions, conditioning Jehovah's Witnesses to accept future commands without scrutiny, without verification, and without resistance, even when those commands carry real-world consequences.
As just a few examples. And our pattern of being obedient will move us to obey and be submissive, even if we don't understand. Even if the direction doesn't seem to make sense to us from a human standpoint. But we'll remember this pattern of being obedient, that Jehovah often does direct the unexpected to be done. He often directs something that doesn't make sense from a human standpoint. Especially in times of deliverance and judgment, Jehovah often uses shock and awe, doesn't he?
The Bible, Jehovah God himself, clearly commands, "Do not put your trust in princes, nor in a son of man, who cannot bring salvation." Psalm 146:3. Yet these men, who now claim they will be your future kings, are effectively telling you that this command does not apply to them. It does. The command is explicit and without exception. Do not put your trust in men, any men, who cannot bring you salvation. That responsibility belongs to God alone. You have been warned. Do not say you were not.